all sorts of things. Now, I'm just bringing Simon back in, and we are going to do the Ask Me Anything. So here we go, Mr. Trewin.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because it doesn't involve me doing anything other than just reading your amazing questions.
So there's always a little bit of a lag between us going live again and seeing us. Sorry, we had to cut the recording there very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say what's been interesting, right? I feel like we're in the last straight of the marathon, but we've done 7 hours now. It seems kind of astonishing, which has taken us from you have an idea through to you're now coping with those reviews, which don't love everything that you're doing. And I think it's and I'd say that I'm not going to watch them myself because I'm not that much of a egotist, but I think it's well worth going back actually, because I think that we've had some really, really interesting interactions on the comments front as well. And I think, typically I would say most weeks, the best bits have come from questions where people have actually asked stuff that we didn't necessarily think about. Because this is about kind of allaying fears and concerns from authors, and I see the agent role as very much as a kind of spirit guide to take an author and say, look, there's stuff you need to worry about and stuff you shouldn't worry about, and I'll tell you what you need to worry about. You focus on what you're brilliant at, which is writing the book, without which none of this happens, and I'll focus on what I'm brilliant at, which is protecting you and doing all that kind of thing. So ultimately there are loads of key people in the process, but it all starts with that idea, doesn't it?
Absolutely, the big idea. That's where it all comes from. Now, everybody's catching up now because of that lag. There's always that moment of terror when we go live and there's no comments because there's a bit of a delay. And are we in the right place?
Yeah, and it may be, of course, some people didn't come the 11 o'clock one, but don't worry, it's not. We were just kind of.
We've cut it. I stopped the recording there while we were off, so that actually you'll be able to see the whole thing back again. And we had fancy slides and everything. So if you're just arriving at 12 because you missed the fact that we were coming on a bit earlier.
And I think actually the last hour kind of counts. I think we'll replace the missing last week, which we had a technical issue with. But actually, to me, it was this is a lot better because it was more focused and really interesting.
Yeah. So this week, please, Rodrigo, you start firing away with your questions.
Nora is asking, rom-coms, dead in the water, or am I still safe? I think you are very safe, because I think we all need a bit of a laugh at the moment.
Especially now.
If you're writing a pandemic thriller, possibly, maybe put some more jokes in it. No, sorry, that's really poor. But you know what I mean? I think rom-coms, we're in a great place. I think we want uplifting fiction at the moment.
Okay, Flo, who is in Nova Scotia, is just asking, is the location of an author a stumbling block for agents? Will rural authors like me be out of luck unless their book is absolutely brilliant? You represent people who live all over the world, don't you? So
yeah, I do, and I think you live in Nova Scotia. That's a great angle, isn't it?
Gorgeous.
I mean,
don't worry about that.
I have one friend in Nova Scotia, and it's somewhere I think it looks absolutely beautiful, and it's somewhere I'd love to visit. No, I don't think you should worry about that at all.
No, definitely not. And the thing is, I mean, a publisher, if when you get the deal and everything, a publisher will organise for you to focus on PR, and there's usually a sort of 2-week window in terms of PR if that's what you're worried about travelling for that. But really, it's about the book, isn't it? I mean, that's the most important thing in all of this. It doesn't matter where the author is or who the author is. It has to be about the book, because when the book hits the shelf and the reader's standing there reading it, you're not there as an author to stand there and give your sales pitch or say, well, actually, this book's about that. It has to be about the book. So don't worry, Chloe. Make your book the best that it can possibly be. Now let's look and see what else we've got here.
Anita's just said this is the new part after 12. Yeah, this is Ask Me Anything. So this is about you. Ask me no questions, and I'll just sit here.
Yeah,
staring at myself in the mirror. But I think you made a good point, Vanessa, about all of this stuff we've talked about. Is just creating a residual sense of someone going into a bookshop and thinking, I've heard about that. Did I hear the author being interviewed? Or, and then they're going and picking up the book. In fact, in the break, in the 4 minutes between the episodes, this just arrived, the new bookseller, which is
subscribe. And they've got free, we've mentioned it before, they've got those free daily updates and weekly updates that are online. Really important.
This is previewing books that are coming up. And I think that's really, really important. It's just have and again, get hold of this if you can I'm not sure if you're able to buy it locally, but you could probably
Can you
subscribe.
order it, and you can subscribe to those daily updates, you know, the email ones that come
Yeah,
out.
which are free, I think, aren't they? I mean, you know.
Totally. And we're pinging those backwards and forwards to keep on top of the news. So lots of questions coming in. Rodrigo is saying, last week we talked about the impact of the pandemic on the publishing market. I'd like to know how you think it will impact aspiring writers. Is it the right moment to submit to an agent?
Yes, it is. I think I'm not spending any time commuting, so I have more time.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody else this morning, another agent, and they said exactly the same thing. Now,
and I was talking to a major publisher yesterday, and he's just said to me, the quality of submissions they're getting at the moment is that we need some really good debut fiction to come in. So yeah, absolutely. Everyone's a bit nervous about the future. So what are they going to buy? They're going to buy some books.
They want to buy the big book, the exciting book. So
Mm.
Nicola says, when you written a book where your protagonist has the same profession as you, people are inevitably going to assume that you've written about real life experience. How do you deal with this?
Oh, that's a really good question, isn't it? Well, I mean, clearly you are, no one's forcing you to write that book. You're writing it because you feel there are experiences in your life which will lend themselves to give additional texture to a plot and a character. So, I mean, you know, clearly a lot of debut novels are drawn from an author's experiences. I mean, I have a background in theatre. If I ever wrote a novel, I'm sure there would be a theatre side, because I know I can bring authenticity to it that somebody else couldn't do. And I see, I mean, you need to be careful, don't you? You know, people worry about libel. I mean, if you, you know, if you worked with somebody, you know, you were a postman and you worked with someone who got arrested, a fellow postman who got arrested for something and went to prison and blah blah, and then you wrote a plot in which, well, you're not going to be libeling somebody who went to prison for their crimes, but if you have a character that somebody else can recognize as being themselves, about which you're giving them characteristics which they feel are damaging their reputation. Okay. Let's say, you know, Vanessa, you write a novel where there's a bald London agent who does a weekly podcast who turns out to be a serial killer or is crooked and is stealing their clients' money.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, who's her agent? Oh, yeah, that's libel, isn't it? Come on.
Totally is. Yeah. So you need to be really careful that the people who you work with, who are automatically going to assume that the book is about them, aren't. It isn't about them. That they are really, the characters are really, really different. I remember when I first started writing, the mums at school all thought I was writing about them. Somebody told me afterwards that the ones around the gate, you know, all convinced that they were all in the books, and you know, they weren't at all. But people will always look and think they recognise themselves. So just do everything in that world.
We should talk about names, shouldn't we? Be really careful actually on this. You know, if you write a thriller in which there's a serial killer called Simon Trewin, that's going to be a problem for me, and probably a lot of. So what I mean, you know, what you should do now, and I had a legal case a few years ago where somebody wrote about a crooked solicitor, fictional character in a city in England, where there only happened to be one solicitor who happened to have that name, and so there was a big problem. Just put their name in Google. You know, if you can find anyone with a character name, don't just call it something else.
The most amazing copywriter who will check all of those types of details. It's just absolutely brilliant. So hopefully it'll get picked up. But just do and Google the names anyway, because I'm a devil for doing that, Simon, aren't I? I put names in that I think I just like the sound of, and I'm really rubbish on celebrities and stuff.
Barack Obama. Well, that's a good name. I said no.
And he said, you can't say that. He was the manager of Liverpool between whatever. Yeah. So you have
to, so Erin has a good question here.
She does, where has it gone? Her manuscript's out for full reads, but she'd like to query another agent. So basically, she sent out partials. 3 or 4 agents have asked for a full manuscript, and there's another agent she'd like to query. What should she do? Should she wait for the full reads to come back, or do you think she should query that agent?
I would send it to the new agent as well, and then maybe after 72 hours, email that agent again and say, "Oh, somebody's called the full manuscript in."
Oh, they have.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, they have. So yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the one thing about querying a bunch of agents together is to be really, really sure your book is ready to go, because sometimes those agents might come back with feedback, and then you'll go, "Oh my God, if I'd have fixed that, then it would be so much better." So
you know, I have this expression: keep your powder dry. Don't send it to everybody at once, because everybody might come back and go, "The second half doesn't work."
Yeah,
and you go, "Oh God, you're right."
Yeah, and then so just don't get too carried away. It's a long process. We mentioned this earlier. It's a year from big idea, literally, or contract signing to bookshelf. So you make sure that keep it going slowly.
The window cleaner's arrived and is now climbing in and the phone's going. It's great. It's live.
It is. David Bending is asking, Stephen King states the plot of a book shouldn't be the first stage of writing. Do you agree? I think without characters, you have no plot. But Simon, what do you think? What's the most important thing or character, or what else goes into it?
I got slightly distracted there by the phone, so can you just answer the question again?
That. Yes. So David's just asking, Stephen King says that plot isn't the most important thing that goes into a book. And obviously without good characters, you don't have a plot. So, how do you have any theories on that?
I mean, there's that Christopher Booker book, which I kind of should basically be getting royalties from because I quote it every week, but it's called 7 Plots. And there are only a certain number of plots, really, aren't there? I mean, I think if you start, I mean, I'm often sending emails to some of my authors just saying, well, this is an interesting story, and or an interesting person, and it's amazing that sometimes you don't quite know where a book starts, and it's not always with 4 characters in a locked room and one of them's dead when the lights go on, is it? It might be, if you got these 3 people together, what might happen, or what might they talk about? Like in Keep Your Eyes on Me, you just happen to have 2 people sitting next to each other randomly on an aeroplane, and stuff happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think, David, there's no right way with fiction. Everybody has to find their own way into the story. But character, the plot is important, but so is character. There's a really good question. Will's just asking, at what stage do you need an ISBN? Don't worry about ISBNs. Actually, you're not the only person to ask that. Somebody emailed me about that yesterday. Your publisher deals with all of that. Okay, so you don't need to go. You don't need to register books, ISBNs. Don't even go near it. Don't worry about it.
Don't start messing with that, really.
No, let the publisher deal with it. Robert's asking, what do you think the next trend is for, you were good on this, Simon, what do you think is coming up? What I think post-pandemic reading, what do you think people will be looking for?
Feel good,
uplit, I think so.
I mean, we're living in a bad thriller that's never going to end at this stage. Where we want something that is, fast food and fun, I think.
Definitely. Okay, so
questions are pouring in now.
They are now. I'll go through them quicker. Sorry, Michelle's asking about festivals. Miss is talking about that, and about applying for them. Generally, as I'm a festival programmer, one of the things you can do for a festival programmer to make things easy for them is to come up with a concept for an actual event, for a panel. So rather than just sending in your information and saying, look, I'm a debut author and this is what I've written, actually go and find some other authors and who will gel, and where you can make a really interesting panel, not necessarily talking about your books, maybe about something else, and send that in. But keep an eye, because a lot of festivals these days open up to ideas. So the Red Line Festival, I think, is still open. Contact them to find out, pitch your ideas to them.
The only thing I'd say about that, I think that clearly the more you can focus through your publisher, the better, because a publicist will be in touch with a lot of festivals. So try to, if you have an idea and say, well, there's a local festival in our village or town, and your publicist will probably know about it. But if not, you can work together. But I think it's not good if you kind of just go away and be your own publisher, even if you've got one.
Yeah. So Aileen's asking, Simon, you said to look for a voice that takes you on a journey. Is that in any genre? So this is a question really about, do agents represent every single genre?
No. I mean, that's what websites are for. Go on. If they specifically say, I don't represent fantasy or
horror
books about cars, don't send them a book about a haunted car, because it's not going to work for them. And there's a reason for that,
Yeah. So you're absolutely looking for voice, but you aren't looking for it. You're looking at for voice in the genres that you represent.
Voice is everything.
You're looking for great voice. You're looking for a great book, but
I mean, I would say what we all want in publishing is a book that makes you forget you're reading a book after a few pages, and you look up and it's the coffee's cold. It's 2 hours later and you're 197 pages in. That's good, because none of us are. Nobody's trained to be an agent. We're just trained to be consumers. We're punters, aren't we? We read a book and we read it. We like it.
So question here, do literary agents represent poets? In my experience, poets contact publishers directly.
Who's that question from?
That's from Sarah. She's saying in Ireland it generally happens at public.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the poetry publishing community, being published as a poet, it's almost an honor that's conveyed upon you by the community that you're part of. You know, poetry publishing is it's something which is very important to our cultural landscape, but it's not something that's important to our economic landscape. And I don't think agents can bring much value at all, frankly. I mean, if you're a poet who also writes fiction, then great. But if you're being published by Carcanet or Faber or whatever, I suspect the contracts are pretty standard. So
yeah, okay. So then, somebody's looking for where they can get the free updates. If you go to the bookseller website, so it's thebookseller.com, you'll find there's an email ticky box yoke in there somewhere, and you can click to get the various different updates.
Okay. Pauline's saying, how will I know it's ready? I'm afraid I'll send too soon or hold off and maybe miss that opportunity. Right. The world doesn't know about your book and isn't waiting for it. It's ready when you feel happy to be judged by what you've done. And I would say the more, if you can find a tribe, you can find some fellow writers or a community or Facebook group.
Get readers report.
Yeah. Then peer review is an important thing.
Yeah.
Don't, if your mum says it's ready, don't, it probably isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say just hold back, keep writing and rewriting and putting it away and coming back to it and thinking, what was I thinking? All those things. There'll come a point when you're sort of, you've got so far with the book that you need to step away and then come back, write it again, and then send it out.
Yeah. And I always say to
no hurry.
No, they print it off. Absolutely make sure you print it off and read it over in print before you send it anywhere. And just to give you an idea, I would do what, 3 or 4 drafts before it goes to my editor. Then my editor gets it, and there's maybe another 3 or 4 drafts before it even gets anywhere close to a copy editor.
Okay.
That's 8 drafts of a book. So
wow,
that's,
yeah.
You need to be looking at 8 to 10 before you send it anywhere.
Gillian is asking how many agents sent to once. I'd say 4 or 5 to begin with, and then just keep a running list, because some you'll never hear from ever. Yeah. And then others, you'll hear from very quickly. So, but don't hold your breath for one person. 4 or 5 seems absolutely sensible. Are authors obligated to use social media for promotion? Can they opt out? This is from Sean. You can opt out of anything. I mean, I don't imagine Harper Lee was big on Twitter. But actually,
it's down to selling books, isn't it, really?
I mean, I think, look, ultimately it's your agent and publisher will all they can do is to demonstrate to you the benefits of you putting some time into doing it. If you feel it's not for you, then, it's possible that a publicist could tweet for you or put some posts out there. But I mean, I think it's, as I said at the beginning, as I said in the last hour, set up an account, Sean Kelly author. If you want to separate it from you, if you're worried about personal things, just, delineation from that. How do film and TV rights work? The publisher is buying the right to print and publish the book in certain territories, might be UK Commonwealth, might be the world, whatever. Film and TV rights are going to be agented by your agent. They're going to be reserved, and on your behalf, you're going to own those rights. And then somebody will come along and say, I want to option this. Despite what you read, nobody really buys the rights, they option them. So they may say, we would like 3 years for 10,000 quid. And during which time we'll try and get a script financed, and we'll try and get it greenlit or financed. And if that happens, then you can make some more money. Yeah. But it's pretty straightforward like that, really. And the majority of those things don't go beyond the option stage, but if they do, you're laughing. Exactly. Is it good or bad if a book similar to your unpublished book is a big success? I don't think it's great. If your book is, set on the Titanic, and the unpublished, and this book comes out, which is also set on the Titanic, that's possibly an issue. Yeah, but also it's not the end of the world.
No, think about what's similar. Just because you think it's similar, your plot, you've got your own voice, you've got your own story. There's been if you going back to Simon's 7 plot books, there are only so many plots, there are only so many locations in the world. If you've written a book about 3 people living in a flat in New York and somebody else has 2, and maybe one of them's a lawyer, they get stuck in the lift, whatever it is, don't worry, because your book will be original.
Absolutely.
Don't stop.
You might need to hone the pitch a little bit in case instead of it being, the Titanic thriller, it may need to be, slightly, And in fact, you know, there have been lots of those. Okay, so Helen says, I've written a mid-grade novel set in the Iron Age in Ireland. I've used place names in Irish language and some Irish names. Would I have to change them to English, provide a glossary? I think a glossary sounds good to me. I wouldn't worry. You want to keep the authenticity of the setting, don't you? That's my feeling.
It does depend how tricky they are, though, because some Irish words you can't. They're a bit like Russian, and sorry, people are going to shoot me down now, but they can be quite hard. So bear in mind that if you want to appeal to a British publisher, it's different if it's, I suppose, I think obviously in fantasy there's lots of words that are very strange, and there's a whole world out there of different spellings and stuff. But just bear in mind, if you're trying to appeal to a publisher that's not an Irish one, that they might struggle with some of those. So just go through and have a look. We've just done that in my book. Yeah, we've just changed one of the names to make it a little bit.
It's about not confusing a reader. I mean, if you've got, you wouldn't have a book with two characters called Tom, one spelled Thom and one spelled Tom, because you're just going to get confused. And I often, I have problems with, if you have lots of characters in a book and they're all called, Evelyn, Eugene, and Euphemia. I'm like, can they not all begin with an E? Exactly. It's funny. It's just things like that,
Really good advice. Now, there's small things. There's a good question here from Maria. She says, what do you do if you get a full manuscript request and then end up waiting weeks for feedback? Does that mean they're not interested? I think you need to go back, Maria, and just give them a follow-up email, because it could be that,
well, it may just be they haven't got around to reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. Times are strange at the moment, so everything's a bit different.
But I mean, how quickly should you chase is a good question. I mean, I think leave it a month, and then I think it's legitimate. As many people have been chasing me now because I'm woefully behind, but there we go. We'll get there in the end.
We've been pulling
woefully behind. Yeah, I mean, I think a month. You can just say, how are you getting on, or don't try and be too annoying. But if something happens, if somebody says, if another agency says, really love this, can we have a phone call? Let all the other agents know, because if they haven't started to read it, they will.
They will, super quick. Yeah, definitely. That's really, really important to be really, really open with it. Okay, so I saw another good one here. Somebody's asking about, Gillian's asking about, are the length of chapters key? Thrillers tend to have short, punchy chapters. Can contemporary fiction have shorter chapters as well? Absolutely.
No, if you read James Patterson, I mean, the chapters are kind of, sort of 6 page. I mean, I think that's about, we're talking about the context here. We're talking about pace, aren't we? And I think that there are no rules. There's no kind of template. This is a thriller, and then you download it. But if you go and see a thriller at the cinema, or if you read one, there's a texture, isn't there, to how it works?
Yeah.
And you don't, in the last 15 minutes of a thriller, tend to have long periods of description of the wall and the this, that, and the other. It's about action at that point. So let the story take you where, as a writer, you feel it should go, and then it's up to the editor to hone it as and when.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things to think about is also I think always your reader experience, because if you've got a 100,000 word book and it's only got 4 chapters in it and they're 25,000 words long, that is going to have a huge impact on how your reader reads the book. So don't get too hung up on chapter length, but just tell your story, but just be aware of the fact that people do sleep when they're reading books. Unfortunately, I hate to think that, but they might need to put it down and then pick it up the next day.
Sandra has what looks important. I've used my building for location because it's a beautiful large office. My story is purely fiction. The story never happened, but colleagues have read it and kind of assume that the plot and the location are both drawn from life. And I think that, you might want to just tidge that a little bit, because you don't want the company to go, hang on a sec, is somebody now thinking we're connected to this thriller?
I think you can describe the building, and it can be a beautiful building, but give it another name and put it in another city. That's what I would do, because the location is going to be the same. Bear in mind that if you're writing about a building, let's say it's in O'Connell Street in Dublin, and 95% of the people reading your book may never have been to O'Connell Street, so they don't know what it looks like anyway. So there's no need for it to be in any specific location. It's about you creating a world for your reader. That's really important.
Duncan has asked an important question here. It says, when you send out invites to a book launch with a pen name, does that give your friends different reactions, and could they not tell others who you really are?
Yeah, generally
Why
speaking,
would one? Yeah,
on
you have a
name.
pen name, but you're public about who you are. I don't
Yeah,
know. Why would one want to pretend you're not who you are?
yeah. No, it's
If
yeah,
that's the case, maybe you shouldn't have a book launch. I don't
yeah.
know.
You can't. If you're going to use a pen name, you have to be the person, and you have to turn up and be that person. And yes, it is a bit confusing. There are people who still don't know it's me, but generally speaking, pen name doesn't hide you. So yeah, if you're
We're being asked about vampire novels and whether they are a light genre for agents. It's not something I've ever been involved with. I don't know whether that's a current. What you need to do is you need to find an agent who kind of specializes in horror, and then ask them that question. But I'm not aware of a plethora of vampire novels that
I think they were very, very big for a while. So I think what you want to do is try and get a new take on that.
Twilight and things. There was a time then, wasn't there?
And then werewolves came next. So those they have. I think some people in publishing do feel they've been done. So you want to try and pop with a new ad if you can.
What's the opinion of the author writing their own screenplay of their book? I think stick to what you know. If you're an expert produced screenplay writer, great. Other than that, you're probably the worst person to adapt your own book. I think, as Robert McKee says in his book Adaptation, stick away from it, because you're not going to kill your darlings. You're going to think, I've got to have that subplot, whereas somebody else will go, no, that's not going to work. And anyway, a film company optioning the book is probably not. They're not going to ultimately see you as a big asset to that.
No, not at all.
Might,
unless you've got a first in screenwriting, don't go near it. I wouldn't.
Even then.
How many rejections from agents should I receive before I give up, rewrite the opening chapters?
Well, you've written the whole book to begin with, haven't you?
Yeah. Don't give up. Never give up.
I don't know. 40? I don't know.
It might, because it is very subjective, isn't it? I mean, that's the whole thing, is that you can, and also there are many reasons why a book can be rejected that have nothing to do with the agents themselves. It can be do with the market. It could do with the the length of the book. There are lots and lots of different things. So yeah, just keep going, keep writing. And it might be that there are lots of trends as well, aren't there, in publishing? So women's fiction died a bit of a death for a while, and then it reinvented itself and it became sort of darker, and it's moving now back into that lighter women's fiction. It might just be that your book isn't quite hitting the trend, so hold on to it, and then it might have its moment a little while later.
I mean, one thing I'd say is, if you're doing your 3 or 4 or 5 at a time, and let's say you get to round 3 and you've had 10 rejections, all of which say, I don't find the central character's dilemma a believable one, then maybe you do need to look at it then, because I often find if I send a book out and I get similar rejections from a publisher, they're usually right. So I think if you get if 7 or 8 people all say, but blah, then you need to take it on board. I did have a conversation yesterday with an editor who just said, contemporary fiction, will it be possible to write a contemporary novel that doesn't mention coronavirus? I mean, so will all contemporary novels be set in 2019 is basically what we're saying. They want to be set in 1938, because otherwise you can't have a fast-paced London thriller based in 2020, because you can't get around London. You can't get around Birmingham. You can't get around Nova Scotia. I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah. So we've got to have a big think about that, and nobody knows the answer at this stage. A couple of good questions here. At what stage of your writing should you think of looking for an agent?
When you're ready to cross the line from writing for yourself to writing for other people.
Definitely, but finish the book. It's absolutely essential that you finish the book.
Good point. Finish it, yeah, for sure.
Question there. I have 3 children's books to send off. Oops, it's moving down. Should you send all 3 together or just one?
You should send the one that you would rescue from a burning building if you could only take one out, and you should mention the other 2. Don't send them all at once. I think if Polly Nolan was with us, who's a fantastic children's agent, she'd say exactly that, wouldn't she? Well, she'd probably contradict me, but yeah.
You 2 are great together. It's really good. That's who I was talking to this morning, actually. Is it acceptable to have multiple agents if you're talented enough to genre hop? I think genre hopping is a good thing, clearly, but what's really important is to decide to send a united front to an agent to sort of talk about what it is you're going to do. Because if you look at most authors, they don't
literary authors is slightly different, but if you look at commercial fiction, authors tend to write within the same parameters. You know, I mean, you kind of know, you know what a Joanna Trollope novel is. You know what a Sam Blake novel is within broad parameters. You know, you're not, you know, if David Walliams suddenly wrote his next book was a thriller and then the next thing was a verse drama, it's going to confuse people, isn't it?
Yeah. So
So I think
usually,
just,
yeah, you might use different names or whatever. I think I do know different authors who have agents in different territories, and
yes,
some who maybe have a screen agent because their own agent is a pure book agent and doesn't have a screen wing. So you know, it sometimes yes, but generally, if you can get everybody, the same person to manage your career, because that's what an agent does. It's about, isn't it? It's about career management and strategy. And if you can get the
yes,
same person to help you through all of that, then that helps hugely. We've
yeah,
got two questions about pen names. So Rodrigo, who has quite a complex name, is asking about whether he should submit under a pen name. And actually, Gillian said that she is also has an unusual name, but in a different way. And should she be thinking about publishing under her own name? Um, and
okay.
I
I mean,
think,
what I'd say about that is I'm all for authors. You know, if you've got a fantastic name which speaks to your background, then I think that's really important. You know, because you're bringing something to that book, aren't you? Like if you're writing a great Irish novel and you have a fantastic Irish surname or an Irish name, why would you shed that? But what you do want is you want to visualize your name on a book and think, are people going to be able to remember it and are they going to be able to find it? And I've told this story before. When I had a book published, I ended up lying on the floor of the Waterstones to find my book under tea, and it was, you know, anyway. So you need to think about that a little bit.
I think
Some
the thing is not to when you're going, the agent and publisher will make a decision about pen names and they'll work with you on that.
yeah,
So if you're when you're applying in the first instance, use your own name because otherwise it gets very confusing. Certainly
yes,
for you, Simon, if you've got people applying to you with different email addresses, different names, you don't know who you're talking to. So keep it
yeah,
simple and get advice from your agent down the road.
okay.
Don't worry about that now.
Um,
Um,
Erin has asked about what do I think about Query Tracker and
Duo
Duotrope. And if you've noticed me looking down, I've just been going on to Query Tracker because to be
I've never
honest,
heard.
it's so it's about data. So you sign up, you add in your data about your query and agent experiences, and then I think it will then produce a submission list for you once you type in various, you know, you decide what you're doing is ticks this, this, and this, and it'll come up with a submission list. Uh, Fascinating. Obviously, I'm going to put my own name in later on and see what it says. I mean, I would say that you shouldn't devolve the choice of where you're sending a book to an app. I mean, it may be brilliant. I can't speak from anything other than do your homework, listen to 7 hours of video
Yeah,
content from us,
so true.
you know, start reading the book seller. You'll
Yeah.
start seeing the names pop up and then just do that. And I
No,
think
do
the
your
danger
research.
is,
I think it's so
yeah,
important. You said earlier on about meeting agents. You know, if you get different, if you get a couple of different agents interested, to actually make sure you meet them and speak to them so that you know who they are. And I think if
yeah,
you use a system like that, there's no personal touch. You don't know who you're applying to. So I think
no.
it's really important that you feel that you know that they're the right person for you.
Yeah, there used
Um,
to be an app, and I don't know which one it was, that used to write the submission letter as well. And you could just spot them a mile off. They
oh,
all looked the same, and you just thought after a while, this is a kind of junk. This felt like spam mail or junk
yeah,
mail, really.
yeah,
But anyway, I can't speak from experience with these, but I think you can probably make it own it a bit more than using a app.
just use a spreadsheet. It's fine. You can work it. I'm sure you can do that. Now, sorry. Where are we? Sorry, I saw something about word count there. Went flying past. Okay, so Jenny's saying if commercial fiction is generally 90,000 to 120,000 words, is 80,000 words too short? Would it be off-putting for agents? So, how about getting books the right length? But
Well, I mean, Mary Costello's amazing book Academy Street is apparently, I don't know, 42,000 words long. To me, it was like it could have
just love
been
it all.
150,000. It's just so it's immersive, isn't it? So, look, I think if you're writing commercial fiction, you're writing a thriller, and it's 50,000 words, it is gonna feel too short. It's like, you know, let's say you go to the cinema, you know how long a film is. If you go and see the new, you know, Scorsese thriller, you know it's going to be 3 hours. You go and see the Bond, it's probably going to be 2 hours. But if you went to see a Bond and it was 48 minutes long, you'd think, you know, it doesn't work. So, you know, just use your own experiences as a consumer and just think about it. Most books are kind of similar length, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, definitely. And it's all to do with all the cost of book production too. That has to be taken into account, doesn't it? Megan's saying that she's written a book about a gender identity switch and that an agent's shied away from it. This is sort of nearly an own voices question, isn't it? Because they were nervous about a reaction that they could get. I think sensitivity readers are the answer to this, are they? I have somebody else, another author, who's getting one read. It's about a book. He's written a book about a refugee, and he's asked a refugee to read it to see if.
Yeah, I think sensitivity readers are a very important thing. I think there's a lot of conversation about cultural appropriation, and I think you quite clearly need to be sensitive to how your book is going to be read by all areas of the community, and take whatever steps you can to make sure that the book is authentic.
Okay.
And coming from a good place.
Yeah, Katrina's saying she's having her novel published by a vanity publisher. That's sending off so many alarm bells in my head. And Will, in yours, I'm worried about who that might be, Katrina. And will that go against her when she starts sending out her new novel to agents?
It depends what vanity publishing is. I mean, I think the majority I don't feel on the whole you should ever be paying money to get your book published. The money should be coming to you for the rights in your book. If the vanity publishing is effectively kind of like printing plus, and you're just going to end up with a few copies in your garage, and you're going to do this, that, and the other.
And you've got a really good cover, and you've gone through the whole process.
It's not going to do any damage, but I really, unless you're writing like a local history where quite clearly a publisher isn't going to think this is you're writing a history of your local church or something. The community who are going to buy that book. So that can be a legitimate way of vanity publishing. But I think if you enter into vanity publishing thinking your novel is going to make it into a major high street retailer through a vanity publishing house, I think you need to Google the name of the publisher that you're thinking of paying, and just seeing what kind of response it's got on the internet, and just have a go and take some advice from Society of Authors, whatever, Yeah,
or email me, Katrina, because there are some who you really don't want to get involved with, and I just hope you haven't signed a contract yet, but we will.
Okay. Sally is asking a question here about, hang on, going back to question on COVID. If a novel is set in 2021, should it be changed and set in 2019? COVID is mentioned as a past event in the novel, and there is still some distancing.
No,
if you've embedded the COVID into the novel, then that sounds like it's an important part of the plot. Just stay with it.
Yeah, and if it's 2021, I think that's good. The thing is, 2019 is going to be ancient history because of the change.
We hope. Yeah.
So
David is asking different names for different genres. I think you're going to do really well to get your launch in one name in one genre. I know Ian Banks had Ian M. Banks, and Josephine Cox had Jane Brindle, and Ruth Rendell had Barbara Vine, and all that. But I wouldn't worry about it right now. Just focus on the one author name and the one genre.
And making a really big success of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going back through here to see if we've missed any.
James is asking me something about where did I work? Well, in corporate life, I worked in central London. When I've been on my own, I used to work in London, but I was a bit of a peripatetic agent. I go and sit wherever I could plug my laptop in, really.
Yeah. But you had offices, you've worked in different, I think David was asking if you'd started off in Shieldland, and you did, and then you ended up in...
I did, yeah. Lovely place, yes.
And ended up in WME via United Agents and various other things. Where are we going?
So, complex. Okay, so Rodrigo's asking about, thanks for tackling my question. Oh, that's good, it's been bugging me for a while. Yeah, love Ian Banks and love Ian M. Banks, that's all good. Right, Helen is asking whether she can have a private Facebook page for friends and family and another one for me as an author. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we talked, if you go back to episode 7, we talked a bit about setting up getting your social media in good order. And one of that is to say, why don't you have this is my public face, me the author, and this is me, sharing pictures of kittens.
Yeah.
I never get enough of those, I don't think.
Keep your own Facebook page private. But actually, there was a question earlier in the previous session about having different Facebook pages for different books. And I think this is similar to having different websites and Instagram accounts for different books. As an author, you are going to have more than one book. So if you set up a page for just, like if I'd have set up a page for Little Bones, it meant I'd have to set up a new page every time I wrote a new book, and then have to create an audience for and the traffic for that that new page. So I think it's really important for you to buy, I think you said this earlier right at the start, buy your domain name, buy your own name as a domain, and use that so that you can bring everything in together onto the one place, and then you can, you have one mailing list and you've got one lot of traffic, and you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. So do have Facebook pages.
And remember to renew it. I mean, I currently don't own my own name. I have .co.uk as my name. I don't have .com because I forgot to, and it's now owned by some people who quite clearly, there's one person they could sell it to in the world. So the price is quite clearly, they're never going to get anything because I'm never going to buy it from them at $5,000.
That's what they're trying to do, is it? That's mean.
Well, I don't know if it's that, but I mean, it's quite clearly, it's a difficult negotiation, that. Good question here from Anita, saying, if you decide to submit to American agents, do you have to change the spelling to the American spelling? I wouldn't say that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm. No, because you get it wrong, probably. No, they'll know if they decide they want to publish it. When your copy editor goes through it, then they'll sort out all the American spelling.
Yeah, and don't start saying, pavement, I better change it to subway or sidewalk or underground, whatever.
No, you'll get one wrong. I remember Arlene Hunt, when she had an American edition of her book published, and she'd forgotten, I think, about vest or something. There were just different words that we use that you wouldn't use every day that have different meanings in America. So don't try and get too fancy. Just send it in, and then they'll worry about that.
Okay, James is saying, are there enough agents in the marketplace or too many?
Probably not enough. From the authors, there's an awful lot of it's a proper pyramid, James. There's lots and lots of authors, and then it sort of goes up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, that. I mean, I would have thought there are far too many books in bookshops, I'd say, and there are far too many books in my house. If I just move the camera, there's a lot of books up there.
That's only one corner.
So I don't know. I think the great thing is actually that you go to the London Book Fair and look around the book fair, and you just think there are so many thousands of publishers out there, from little to big. And I don't know, are there any great unpublished books out there? I think unfortunately there probably are.
There are, of course there are.
And there are some great agents out there. There are some less good agents. The good thing is it takes a village to keep going, keep looking around, really.
Yeah, definitely. Megan actually is just asking, do agents and publishers look at prize winners and sorry, I've lost the question.
Of course, it's quality filter. It helps us.
Absolutely.
Winners focus.
Enter
any writing challenge you can. Vanessa, I think you can tell them about a couple of writing challenges going on. You've got a good list of that kind of thing that's going on in the community.
Yeah, we have Writing.ie has competitions every single week. It also has submission opportunities, so that's smaller publishers that are opening for submissions, and some big ones too. HarperCollins sometimes take quite a few HarperCollins imprints take direct submissions. So do go to Writing.ie to check that out, and it's looking fantastic at the moment because we've just redesigned it, so it'll work on all your devices really well. How are we doing? Just making sure we haven't missed any there. I think we're pretty much up to date. We've got them all worn out. Oh, David's asking where your cat is. Where's Mr. Tumnus? Hidden away.
He's what? He's saying what?
Asking where Mr. Tumnus is gone.
He'll be on the deck at the moment, probably asleep or in a box somewhere, or probably on my computer upstairs, which is slightly annoying. Amanda's saying Stephanie Meyer has a new Twilight book coming out, so vampire could be very popular again. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, publishing is a slow process, though, and I know after 50 Shades of Grey, it looked like every book had sort of, grey feathers on the front and, wispy thing, was all erotic. I think what was happening there was a lot of repackaging, a lot of publishers going, hang on, we've got a bit of posh porn knocking around, let's repackage it and get it out there. So I think that does happen. I think publishers are, everybody's kind of fixated on the new thing, what's the hot new book coming up. I think there's a lot of very good publishing going on where they repackage an author's backlist, and I've, a couple of my authors I've had for years, their books have been repackaged 2 or 3 times, and I think that that's an interesting thing.
Erin's just mentioning Date with an Agent. Yeah, that's open at the moment. We have Date with an Agent. We don't know quite what form it's going to take yet, but that is a competition. Sorry to cut into you, but that's open at the moment. Go to the International Literature Festival Dublin website or writing.a, and you can find out about Date with an Agent. Simon, you're on our list for that, aren't you? Going to be reading some of those submissions.
It's a virtual agent, is it? Or
you might be very safe by then if you don't want to come to Dublin yet. We're going to see how it all goes.
Grace is asking a question saying, okay, well, I mean, I think Grace is talking about the sort of some of the anxieties and sensitivities that come from being an author, and I think that's a really good general topic actually, because I don't think if you're a writer, I don't necessarily feel the ultimate validation of being a writer is being published. I think sometimes if you write something, you're writing it for many, many different reasons, and I think if you write something that you're really proud of and you share it with some people and they like it, then that's a good thing. There are some kinds of books you might not necessarily want to put them under the spotlight of, is it going to sell? What are people going to think of it? But I think first and foremost, don't think about the getting published bit. Just think about being a writer and finishing a book.
The best book you can, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Valerie's got a really good question here in the cover letter. Should I mention specific successes? Valerie, you need to go back to episode 1 and watch it, episode 1 and episode 2, and watch them right the way through, because we go into a lot of detail about cover letter.
And also, Susan's asking about magic words on synopsis writing. Again, I think we cover that in excoriating detail, I think, in one of the hours. But no, I think it's worth going back. We probably won't be any better at speed than we were at length earlier on. Do we think books for boomers by boomers will ever become a specific genre?
I don't know what boomer is. You'll have to answer that one.
I mean, I think, I think with all these things, birds of a feather flock together, don't they? And I think you'll know by the cultural signifiers of covers and colours and what's kind of meant for your age group, probably.
Okay, so a couple more questions.
Short stories have come up a couple of times, So Sedaris and Anne Patchett started with short stories. Is this a way forward for a new author in this genre? I'd say writing short stories is a very good thing to do indeed, because you can get them published in different places, hopefully. Whether it's The Singing Fly or Granta or whatever it might be. But I think in terms of sales, even with attention spans dropping hugely as they do, I think short stories still struggle to really sell significant quantities, and they're often done as we've got a novelist who's got a couple of years until another novel, but they happen to have amassed a collection of short stories, and then you can put them out. They don't sell particularly well. So I wouldn't want to launch a career with short stories.
And actually, one of my editor in Corvus, when we had her over for Date with an Agent last year, said if all the people who read short stories and wrote them and sent them into competitions actually bought the books, then they'd be a huge genre. So
Anita's asking about websites, and I would say if you're an artist and a writer, I mean, look, you could have one website and a landing page, so people come in and it's like, there's a book or an easel, and you click on one to go in one direction and one to go in the other. That would be an economic way of doing it, rather than having 2 websites, and then you can cross-promote traffic.
People who read your books might want to buy your art, so you don't want to lose them and have to create 2 different streams, do you? How do you end a contract with an agent if it hasn't worked out? Anne's asking.
Very nicely.
Yeah, you need to check your contract with your agent, but absolutely you can write to them and just say, look, you want to terminate. There's usually a termination clause. There should be a termination clause.
I would say if you get offered representation by an agent and they've got a contract, which they should have, it's a good chance to go and talk to the Society of Authors and just say, could you have a look at this? Because I have heard of agents that sign people up for 2 to 3 years, and there's a sort of, it kind of says, even if you leave us, we continue to be your agent for 2 to 3 years. To me, I can't speak to how other people run their businesses. I don't think the agent-author relationship should be one that is anything other than mutually something you want to be doing. Otherwise, it becomes a kind of hostage situation, and I don't think good thing comes out of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so do check your agency agreement. If you're not sure, talk to the Society of Authors. They are amazing and will help you in all areas of contracts if any of you aren't sure.
Good. So Vanessa, a baby boomer is apparently, and I think I kind of knew this because I suppose I am, one of these, is someone born in the 1950s or 60s.
Oh, right.
Have those books become a genre of their own? It's a good point.
No, actually, honestly. So Kenya's asking, how do you know when you found the right agent for you, and how do you know which ones to trust? So I think you need to meet
again, I'd refer you to some of the earlier stuff, but actually, if an agent wants to represent you, and you can go and see them, sit in their office, look at their books.
Yeah.
If you're writing sensitive commercial fiction, literary fiction, and they've got, you know, all their books have men with gold guns leaping out of flames on the back, you might think maybe they're not the right agent for me.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are.
Do your research.
Ask them what it is about your work that appeals to them and why they want to work with you. We're down to 5 minutes now, aren't we?
I know. The most important thing is you want a passionate agent. You want somebody who really understands your work, understands you, because it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be a long-term relationship, but meeting them is so important. You know, I know we can't meet at the moment, but Zoom them, chat to them, find out who they are, see if you can actually work with them. The most important thing is that you're not terrified of your agent, and you don't feel you can email them when you've got a problem, because I mean that's what they're there for, really. Deal with all problems, aren't you, Simon? Now, yeah, we're doing well. 5 minutes to go, lads. Get your questions in. As I say, this isn't the end. We've got more to come.
And I'm pretty sure we'll end up doing another Ask Me Anything at some point in the next 8 weeks.
Oh, somebody's asking, is there a discrimination for older debut authors? Not at all. No, that's the one thing about writing. I think you can, you know, there's a story in everything. So that's the one thing about writing, is that you can do it at any stage.
Yeah, Beth is asking about whether she should get an agent in the same kind of location that she's in. I think if she lives in Ireland now, she should look for a Dublin or a London or Edinburgh agent rather than a New York one. Yeah, definitely. It depends a little bit about what you're writing. I mean, if she's written a book that's purely set in America and she happens to be an American, then it might be that has a better market. Absolutely, very good point. Yeah,
in America, so because it's a more natural home for it. And I think we've got them all there. Well done. We're exhausted now, Mr. Trewin.
I think we've done. Well, yeah, I mean, but we've done 2 hours. We could just do for another 5 hours. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, I mean, this is great. So we've now achieved. We've done what we set out to do back in the day, which is we've done 8 hours. Yep. What we hope is we provided this toolkit for you now from when you have your very first notion that you might want to write, through to coping with reviews, and we're now actually we're having a lot of fun. We're putting together a really exciting list. We're not quite. We want to tease you a little bit further, but we're going to have, I think, another 8 weeks of some publishing professionals, authors, editors, booksellers. And then we can have a different kind of conversation with them. And what we hope to do at the end of the next 8 hours is to give you even more of a 360 about the whole
business. Yeah, I think understanding the business is really important, isn't it? That's one thing that.
And we'll just find another 8 things to do after that. I mean, I don't know why it was 8. We just thought 8 would be the lockdown, but unfortunately.
So we're definitely back at 12 next Friday. We will. We might have somebody with us. And we're going to keep a secret who it might be. And we're looking forward to more questions coming in. And do leave them on the page. I always go through at the end of everyone to go and answer the questions, just in case there's any that we have missed. Do stick with us. 12 o'clock on Fridays.
And we want your feedback as well. We'd love,
very important.
Positive or constructive.
Yeah, please do
tell us
in the comments now.
Yeah.
Tell us what you thought. Tell us what you liked. Tell us if there's anything you want more of.
Yeah, what you want as well. Yeah, that would be good.
Do that. That'd be fantastic. It'd be very useful for us to see what bits were good. So there we go. And as I say, watch back, because there's always bits. You know, when you're watching it live, you don't always hear everything. So there's some really good stuff in those the early ones. I don't even know, 1 to 4 probably is really good. Certainly in terms of submitting, covering letters, synopsis, all of those things. Definitely well worth going back over. Any more questions popping up? Just making sure we've got everybody. So it's good. Anyway, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Trewin, for 2 hours out of your Friday. And we will see you next Friday at 12.
Brilliant.
Indeed.
See you then. Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good writing week.
Bye.